This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, it's being recorded. As chair of the Tilton Conservation Commission, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor of COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, the public body is hereby authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location contemporaneously, so this meeting, which is now authorized by the government's emergency order, however, in the emergency order, I am confirming that we are utilizing electronic meeting. All members of the Tilton Conservation Commission have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and a public has contemporaneously can listen in if at all need be. We do not have at this time, I don't believe, anyone that is not a member of the committee. This notice has been put up on the Town of Tilton's website. If anybody has any difficulty, contact my home personal number, 286-4268, which Kathy is currently busy dealing with Ben, or send me an email. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by a roll call vote. And so we're going to start the meeting by taking a roll call. So would each person activate your microphone, and then after you activate your microphone, if you would just kind of say you're here. I've lost some of you on my picture, so I'm going to try to get you back. There you go. Okay, and also state if there's anyone else present in your current location in the same room as you are during the meeting, which is all part of the state's requirement under the Right to Know Act. Okay, let's start with Bob Hardy.
Bob Hardy here by myself.
Okay, Paul Rushlow. Say something,
Yes,
Paul.
I'm alone.
Okay, Jim
Hello.
Cropsey.
Flying solo, Jim Cropsey.
Okay, Jan Landry.
Yep, I'm here and I'm alone on the porch.
Okay, Helen, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I'm here on the porch, and I cannot guarantee I'll be alone because I have 2 teenagers and Jason. Moving back and forth.
Not a problem. Can I assume you all got copies of the agenda?
Yes.
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 Okay. I'm going to ask your patience for about 30 seconds here because I need to pull up a copy of the agenda. This has been a very hectic day. I'm assuming you can all hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Affirmative.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda says minutes from the special virtual meeting on April 22nd. And I'm assuming you each have copies of that. If need be, I can pull up a copy and share my screen with you. Is there anyone who needs to see that?
No.
Everyone has it? If you have it, and then I would accept a motion to accept the minutes from the April 22nd meeting. And that was that special meeting that we had in order to prepare comments.
Motion to
And I am, I'll share this currently. Oh, there I did for a minute. There's the whatever. So if there's any questions, if not, the other thing is that I would tell you that as you attended, I think most of you, the meeting of the planning board,
dial that, it may ask you for a code. If it does, I have the code number for you.
That's Kathy, right?
238
Yes.
Go ahead, Kathy.
034 701.
I think that was in order to get into the meeting. Right now, we're trying to,
Pardon me?
would someone like, does anyone need a code? No. Okay, how about approval of the
Yeah.
minutes?
I'll
I make a
second
motion
Jim's
to
motion.
accept them. Jim Cropsey, motion to accept them.
Ellen Hanks.
Now you do. You have it.
Accept.
The motion has been made to
Very
move to
good.
accept the minutes and seconded moved by Jim and seconded by Helen.
Oh, yeah. They're there. They're talking. I've got to go. Okay. Bye.
So Kathy's still talking to Beth.
I'm finished.
Well, you didn't mute your mic. Okay, so we're now going to take a vote on the, okay, Kathy Mitchell, how do you vote on approving the minutes?
Aye.
Bob Hardy,
Aye.
Paul Rushlow,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
okay. I
Who
think
made the motion to approve and who seconded?
Jim Cropsey made the motion.
And Helen made the second.
Thank you.
I can't see anyone right now, but I guess it's irrelevant.
We can see you.
I'll bet you can. Okay, what's next on the agenda, Kathy?
The ZBA meeting is scheduled for May 19th.
Okay,
The planning board meeting is scheduled for May 26th.
and keep going.
You contacted Leanne Moynihan and she sent the same documents that we had sent to her.
Kathy will be sending a copy of all of the comments and stuff that she got, but
All right.
there was really nothing new except a dated drainage report dated on May 12th. And I think everything else is probably old stuff. What's next, Kathy? I don't have the agenda in front of me.
I'm sorry.
Uh-oh,
Did
here she
TF,
comes running.
did TF Moran ever update that 100-year storm table? I think we had a 2-year storm on it.
Without going through the drainage report, which didn't show up until today, and it's a massive document, I haven't had a chance to go through that yet, but I will.
All right.
And by
thank
the
you.
way, we will email, Kathy's going to forward all those files to you
Okay.
for your perusal. There is a new planning board meeting planned on May 26th. And as I understand it, I think it might be either tomorrow night.
The ZBA is tomorrow night. Planning board is following Tuesday.
Yeah, the ZBA is, according to the email from Leanne, there were only 2 items had to do with the setback. And I think they also had to approve the multi-use district for the corner there of Morrison Avenue. So if you have an interest and wanted to listen to that, you can check in tomorrow night. I believe the time is 7 o'clock, but it's still on the agenda page. By the way, John Scanlon is the select board right now apparently everyone at Town Hall is going kind of nuts right now because they're really going crazy on the new police building. And apparently they have many contracts they have to sign and other things, and it's taking up a huge amount of time. And John had to go to a special meeting there tonight at 7, but he might be joining us shortly. I will report that John Scanlon today was on Facebook. The gentleman who is in charge of the local historical society had a picture of John scrubbing down Timetable Mabel with a brush and some soap or something yesterday. And then John called me last night, and he also apparently has gone in and did a lot of work at the flower beds down on Salmon Run. I'm still a bit wondering what we should do ultimately about whether or not we should try to come up with some kind of an RFP for someone to maintain the flower beds down there or not. Open for discussion.
I don't know if this would be pertinent to Salmon Run, but I had actually never taken a walk down there, down that rail trail. I think we had talked about that before, about the migratory birds. I think Helen had mentioned that, just in regards to the building lot that's going to be going on. And I did take a walk and documented 24 species of birds that were along that small section of trail from Salmon Run to the bridge. And there were several there were several warblers, eagle flying over the river. So it was really prolific. I don't know if that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone think we should put out an RFP about maintaining the flower beds?
I think we should put out an RFP for maintaining the flower beds. It's like I've heard that before.
Okay, I will tell you one little thing, and right now, because of the question about this, the town is, of course, in the midst of substantially worrying about their budgets, and they are fearful that right now many people may not, due to the unemployment and all that, and the number of jobs may have been lost, worried about getting their taxes paid in July. And so I think right now maybe they're not accepting RFPs, but I'm not sure if there's something else. Kathy did discouraged me from the possibility of posting something on social media looking for some help, but I don't know. I'm willing to hear from others.
Yeah, I mean, we've been told on the Park Commission that we can't hire any help at all for the summer. They've also frowned on, but have agreed to contracts that we've had signed in the past, that they'll honor those contracts, but they've asked us to cut our budget as much as possible in the upcoming months. So
maybe it's best that we just let it go.
So I'm a little confused. The tax bills haven't even occurred yet, and we're being told to cut our budget. So is there something else wrong with the budget now? Or, I mean, there'd be one thing if it was, we're going to put a temporary freeze on to see what happens in July, but unless there's some other over expenditure that I just don't know of, I don't understand why you'd be cutting a budget already without knowing what happened in July.
Helen, I asked your mom the same thing when we got this notice, and she said it's not only the tax revenues, but it's other revenues that the town gets from, i.e. marriages, that they're not getting at this point, dog licenses that people aren't renewing their dog licenses, and all these other expenses too, that she thinks that's why the selectmen are so worried.
Well, I think that there's also some sharing of the rooms and meals taxes. And with all the restaurants being shut, and there being so many restaurants in the Tilton demographic area, I think that if we do get some small amount of the rooms and meals tax, that's something that we're not getting.
Well,
I'd
let
be
me just,
curious. Oh, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I'd be curious if the selectmen remitted anything for the CARES Act funding or to the Gopher Advisory Committee to try to fix areas they can through those federal dollars intended for municipalities.
I had a fairly lengthy discussion with Jeannie this morning for about 15, 20 minutes. And I had some other concerns about the election coming up. And I want to talk to you about that later, Helen. And one of the issues that was making sure that we have enough of the PPE for all the people who are working the polls, as well as the select board, who probably will be there working the polls. And when I discussed about the possibility of purchasing some of this equipment, because some people want to move ahead and start buying stuff now, like the N95 masks, face shields and things, I was told that they really, right now, are not spending any money. So I guess this is all between the town administrator, the select board, the finance director, and however they want to do that. But I can understand what Bob was saying, and I was sort of, I think, kind of discouraged. And I guess maybe I shouldn't have used the word RFP when I mentioned Salmon Run. I guess what I'm more interested in is how we can get that place to look a little bit better than it does, even at some, whether we have volunteers, or I would pay someone out of my own pocket to get down and work there if they could for a few hours, that kind of thing.
Well, you can put out a request for volunteers, and if we had more hands than just ourselves, or more experienced help in general.
Well, maybe what we could try to do within a couple of weeks is maybe find a day, or, I mean, right now with the black flies, I don't think anyone wants to be out there for any length of time. I know I can't be out in my yard for more than 5 minutes without getting eaten alive. But maybe we could try to schedule an hour or two some Saturday morning to get together and try to do a little something down there. Anyway,
Here's
moving
just a
on.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
just mention something about the elections? Is there, like, I know Helen said something about monies. Is there monies that might be available to purchase PPE? Like, I don't think like the workers would need necessarily N95 masks, but if you had like procedure masks or surgical masks, and again, I don't know what the CDC recommends for people that are, out in the community helping, with the elections, but is there a need for face shields for staff? I mean, I know at work, we only use procedural masks and then bump up to N95 and face shields if someone is positive for COVID-19.
That's the same
Okay.
where
Yeah, this was the thing I didn't mention earlier. I have spent the better part of the last 2+ weeks attending these online meetings of a special committee appointed by the governor and the secretary of state to oversee the expenditure of $3.2 million of federal monies for the how it could be impacting or helping with the election. Any extra costs that might have come as a result of the COVID-19. And the bottom line is they've heard from virtually moderators, supervisors of the checklist, lawyers, town clerks, city clerks. I could go on and on and on, all kinds of groups. Tomorrow, I believe they're supposed to have Dr. Chan on. One of the biggest fears that they have is that with an elderly population, largely, there are a lot of people who just simply may not want to work the polls. It is recommended that everyone have one of those, what they call a sneeze shield, like clear plastic, acrylic, whatever, plexiglass in front of them. People who have to walk around and leave their seats and be talking to other people, it's recommended that face shields be used. It's not like these items are terribly expensive. Right now, the online costs that I have seen lately for the N95 masks are $5 a piece. And I would be honest to tell you that I would rather see the best possible protection for any poll worker if they're going to give up their full day to be working at the polls. In the meantime, I have recommended through the select board, which they have agreed to help work with, to set up a committee of some people, including Cindy, myself, a couple of select board members. I'm going to have a ballot clerk, a chief of police, and one more little thing to add. The Bob Cormier is also the local director for, what is it, FEMA or whatever. And there is also the possibility that they may have some funds. So right now it's too premature to figure out what kind of extra monies could come in, but we do want to make sure that any poll workers are properly protected, and whatever the cost is at this point, I think the town will bear it between that and some federal funding available. And part of the conversation with Jeannie today dealt with that. That committee will get together within the next day or two. I'm going to try to, and I want to include Helen on that meeting if it's at all possible. And I will get back to everybody on that kind of stuff later, but I don't want to take any more time on that right now. But the Trail Advisory Committee did meet last week online. Basically, it was just an organizational meeting again, and it's the same old stuff. The promises of putting out the trail markers or the mileage markers on the trail, trying to keep the property upkept, looking for someone to do a little bit of spraying. Hi, Tim. How are you? Tim just joining the meeting, I think. Anyway, but not a lot to report on that. We got an email, I think, that Kathy might have shared with you about an anonymous complaint at Sunrise Shores. Did anyone read that?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
I also went
Okay.
by the location to look at it.
Yeah, and in the meantime, the town's health officer apparently has been involved and has been down to the site and apparently is passing that on to some other authorities. No.
No. Catherine said that she contacted the Division of Regulatory Services at the Department of Agriculture and that they're looking into it. Jim, you said you went down and looked?
Yes.
What'd you see?
It could most of it could almost be considered to be just spreading fertilizer along the ground. I mean, the piles are maybe 6 inches high. It looks like it was relatively spread out, except for two sections where it looked like in one instance, it's like a berm, and it's alongside of somebody's house. I haven't been down there because it's a private road before, but it's possible that this is just a thin amount of material spread over top of this berm. The other across the street from this berm, which is at the top of the road, across the street, that's the deepest section that I could see, and elements of that looked like it might be at least a foot, but probably under 2 foot deep, and spread over an area which could almost be like garden sized, like a 40 by 40 foot section. But that is at the top of the road, and I would guesstimate that it's 400 feet down the road to the lake. So what I remember from this course I took is that the distance and the height of the area that something is spread gives you a dissipation of whatever bacteria or what have you might be in the horse manure. So 400 feet away, but it is kind of steep there. I don't know whether it's composted or not. I couldn't smell anything. So maybe it is composted horse manure. Just not really I don't know, a connoisseur of horse manure, I guess.
Well, in the email that we received, the gentleman who forwarded the information to us said the original complaint was anonymous, but because they've already spoken to this guy and it is abutting apparently some wetlands and it is upslope of the river, and we really haven't had any very warm weather right now, it's anticipated that there will probably be some odors. So I guess if it's being passed on to someone else to look into, I guess, I guess that's the best we can do. Anyone else want to
It's
comment?
organic manure. Does this negate the problem?
What does what negate the problem?
If it was organic manure, he said. What is it like? Is there a rule against fertilizing your property? I mean, that sounds like some of it.
Well, what I don't know is whether or not it's composted horse manure. I mean, I've been putting composted cow manure all over my place with, fertilizing trees and shrubs, etc. But, there's no odor to that. And it's considered to be like almost a mulch. I can't tell you whether this was, composted or not. I think we'd have to get somebody in that knew more about it. Maybe Ben would know, I would imagine.
Should we collect the sample and send it to the state?
No. Jim, did it look like they were filling wetlands or putting it in wetlands? I guess that's what I'm interested in.
Okay. At the top of the hill across the street from that area, I could see some puddles in what looked like wheel marks, and that was in the same general area as some of this horse manure. I would think that if somebody backed up a trailer or whatever to dump off the horse manure, that the weight of that probably caused those indentations and the water came up. So without doing a specific test to see if it's wetlands, my guess is that if I see water and it's close to the surface, it looks like it could be a wetlands. So, but is it specifically designed to fill a wetlands? I don't, it didn't seem to me that was the case. It looks more like somebody's trying to fertilize whatever's in there.
Apparently, multiple loads have been dumped in there, and according to the letter or the complaint, they have spoken to the individual who apparently has ignored that and is continuing to dump it in there. The reason that they're dumping it, whether it's this, that, or the other thing, unless we want to take it on as a real investigation amongst ourselves, I think we let Catherine and the other agricultural whatever just take care of it. I mean, I don't know where the wetland boundaries are, but I don't want to get in, unless we want to really go in and send someone in to research it. I think it's kind of a moot point.
Well, I don't know how we proceed because it does say a private road, but we did get a complaint. So, I drove down there and turned around and came back, but I didn't get out and take a look at anything. I don't know where our jurisdiction really starts and ends there.
We don't really have any jurisdiction, but it sounds as if the Department of Agriculture might.
Yeah, we should see what the Department of Agriculture is.
That makes sense.
We have, as we all know, we have no enforcement ability anyway. Even if we find something, and worst case scenario or best case scenario, we could pass this off to our beloved code enforcement officer and let him deal with it, because I mean, we don't even know where the wetlands begin without hiring someone to go in and delineate where there are wetlands. It's kind of a very shady thing.
Very shady. It's anonymous.
That's the other issue.
Yeah, a neighbor is fessing up to complaining about it because it came through from the Winnisquam Watershed Network.
The
Now,
neighbor
is
gave
this,
it to them and they forwarded it to us.
now, Kathy, could you tell from the complaint, is this manure being generated on site and just dumped there, or is somebody actually trucking this manure in?
It
The,
sounded as if they were trucking it in,
the
but that
anonymous,
wasn't.
yeah, the anonymous complaint spoke like it had been delivered multiple times.
Mhm.
There's no horse farm down there.
The owner of
Okay.
the property lives in Canterbury, according
Okay,
to tax records.
Can he smell it from Canterbury?
Probably not. No problem.
I,
Well,
I think we should just wait and find out what the Department of Agriculture says.
I
Yeah,
didn't
maybe they
smell
can send down
anything,
their manure expert.
but I do remember that John Scanlon had horses. Now that I remember it, and he would know how whether it's composted or not. But if it's somebody putting something on somebody else's property without permission, uh, that's dumping in, you know, in its own right.
My guesstimate is that the Canterbury owner has this property as a summer home or rents it in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so he's
we'll see if
probably
John,
bringing manure up to fertilize an area so he can plant a garden this summer.
Yeah.
we can all speculate.
Doesn't sound like it has anything to do with us.
I agree.
10-4.
I think I'd defer to agricultural.
Yeah.
I agree. Other,
The other correspondence, and I had sent that out, was the after the fact dredge and fill for DeFleece up at on Laconia Road. Just the DES sent us the dredge and fill permit, which is very odd because it had been delivered to them as an after the fact thing. They replaced the dock and then somebody turned them into DES and DES just had them do it. It's still under technical review, but there is a history from the 80s of putting in docks there without permission.
I knew that name was familiar.
Sounds like he didn't learn back in the 80s and just did it this time too.
by the way, I would like to add that Tim Pearson has done a fantastic job. So if you want to go back and check the minutes, not only from our meeting, but any meeting, as well as any documents, as well as the videos, they are now all being put up on the town's website. So that's a good thing, I think. We're not used to this kind of exposure to the public, you know.
Speak for yourself.
Anything else? Nothing else? I would be glad to accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
It's a pleasure to see you all, but I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second
Second
that.
that.
Seconded by many, but I think Paul. Very quick. Okay, we'll do a quick roll call. Helen,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Janice,
Hi.
Jan, Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
meeting adjourned.
Hey,
Thank you
Paul,
very
give
much.
me a call.
I'll call you after the meeting, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.